Good morning everybody and welcome to Lisbon. I'm here on a city break for 3 days. Today is Wednesday, I arrived on Sunday evening and it's really fantastic to be back in the capital of Portugal. It's such a beautiful city with an incredible culture. And today I'm doing a city tour. I got a 48-hour ticket with the Grey Line company. It cost me just 24 euros. Right now I'm on the Praça de Commércio, so the Marquês de Pombal Square, and this is where all the bus tours leave from, or have a stop here at least. Yeah, so I'm going to jump on the bus now and do a bit of sightseeing. I've probably been to Lisbon about 4 times, but I haven't been for quite a while, I would say, so it's great seeing all these places again and having a bit more time to revisit them. So this is the first place that I've decided to stop on my tour. This is called Praça de Comércio, or the commercial square, and it's a real focal point for the city because it's where the city meets the water, so the port area. It's a very beautiful place. So on the tour we went down Avenida de Liberdade, which is the Liberty Square, which is almost like the Champs-Élysées of Lisbon, lots of lovely shops. And then we went past Praça de Rocio, so the Rocio Square, which is a really beautiful square as well. Interestingly, I have never been to Lisbon, or Portugal for that matter, in the winter. So I've been to Portugal a few times in my life, but never in February. So it's really fascinating to see what it's like at winter time. So it's not as busy as it normally would be, because most tourists come here in the summer, but it's still really nice. The weather's good. It's about 16 degrees, very sunny. So in some ways, it's maybe a bit more of an authentic experience. You're seeing really how the local people of Lisbon live, rather than just seeing, the completely tourist side. Yeah, so it's just a beautiful city with a fantastic culture, very nice food, nice wine, beautiful architecture, and on the whole, very friendly people as well. So I think for a city break, it's a really great place to come to. It's got a lot to offer and you can do a lot in a short period of time. Yeah, so I'm going to have a quick look around the square, see what's going on, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know Lisbon a bit better today, because it's a city that I really like, and yeah, it's just great to be here. So the Praça de Commércio, like a large bit of the centre of Lisbon, was completely rebuilt after the 1755 earthquake, which destroyed the majority of the city, and it was redesigned by the Marquês de Pombal, who was a very influential politician in the 18th century. So at this time, Portugal had a very big empire, including places in Africa, Brazil, Asia. It had one of the earliest empires in the world. And a lot of its wealth to rebuild the city of Lisbon came from the natural resources that were extracted from the colonies. So that's where all of the wealth came from to build this fantastic buildings, this amazing architecture that you can see. So if you're ever in Lisbon, it's good to know that the taxis are black and green, or turquoise. Olá, tudo bem? So here's an interesting piece of local history. There's a plaque on the Praça de Commércio right in the corner, on the cross section with the Rua de Arsenal. So at this location, on the 1st of February 1908, King Charles I died for his country, and also the royal prince Louis Philippe. This is a really fascinating piece of history, really. At this spot here, the king and his son, the prince, were assassinated in 1908 on the 1st of February, and that's what the plaque shows and commemorates. So this was a really famous case of regicide, which is quite a rare event. It doesn't happen very often. And they were assassinated with their family when they were going through the square in a carriage. So this was quite important because the king, Carlos, he was relatively well established and well connected king in Europe. He was close to Edward VII in England and other kings and monarchs, and it shocked the whole of Europe when he died because it was a very brutal attack. So not only did he die, but his son, who was the heir to the throne, died, and therefore the crown passed to Manuel II, his second son. And just 2 years later, a republic was declared in Portugal. So only 2 years after this, the monarchy was abolished in Portugal. So this is obviously quite an important event in the history of Portugal because it triggered a constitutional change in the country. Manuel II, for whatever reason, was not able to continue being king, and there was a Republican revolution that took place. So, yeah, it was a very brutal attack. I think he was shot at close range, so he didn't really have any chance of surviving. Yeah, so that's one of the really cool things about going around cities, is that you can see little pieces of history, and this plaque is here to commemorate what happened. So here you can see an old underground train carriage that has been turned into a small exhibition. So, o metro dá vida à cidade. So the metro, or the underground, gives life to the city. And this is to celebrate 75 years of the Lisbon Underground. So that's really cool. Got a small exhibition inside all about the history of the underground. So the Praça de Comércio is a real centre point for the city, and a lot of tourists come here. There are lots of cafes, bars, restaurants all around the square. And as you can see, the river Tagus is right here. So this is a departure point for boat trips. A lot of the tour guides include a boat trip, so you can have a look at the river. Yeah, so it's very beautiful here. On the other side of the river, it is known as Alameda. That's what the other side of the river is known as. And you can see the Christ statue and the very famous bridge crossing over the river Tagus. So one real bonus about Lisbon is that it is a very reasonable city in terms of prices, especially compared to other European capital cities like Paris, London or Madrid. It's a lot cheaper. So for example, a coffee here will cost you about €1. The food is really good here, but it's also quite reasonable to eat out, which is really nice when you're on holiday to be able to do that cheaply. Yeah, so I think that's actually one of the main things that makes Lisbon quite an attractive destination, is that it is quite reasonable. You're not going to get ripped off here, or at least, you shouldn't. Yeah, so that's definitely a bonus. That's definitely one of the advantages of coming to this city. So just a bit further down is the port area, and you can see 2 cruise ships have docked. So they get a lot of cruises stopping in Lisbon, and actually I was sitting next to some people from Germany on the bus who had just come in from a cruise. Yeah, so there's also a metro station here called Terreiro do Passo, which is on the blue line, which is good to know. And here in this Art Deco building, it's called the Centro Tejo, which is where you go to buy your ticket for a boat cruise or a river cruise. And they've got the departure area a bit further down there. So inside the Centro Tejo, you can see it's got this incredible Art Deco architecture. And they've got some amazing tile work with the different destinations. So this one is Setúbal, this one is Évora. So I think there's a tourist information centre here as well, yeah. And they've got a departure board on the other side and different ticket offices. So this is a really beautiful building. It looks like it's been restored quite recently. And out here is the port area. Yeah, and I think a lot of the boats depart from here as well. So they've got a little cafe here. If you want to have a coffee or a drink by the quay and look out onto the river. Yeah, and you can see the Art Deco design is really cool. So they've even got a small beach here. Imagine in the summer people might be making more of this. Okay, so I'm going to head back to the bus stop now for Praça de Comércio, wait for my bus and go to the next point. So here you can see some of the ships that have docked in the port. So this is a train station in Lisbon called Santa Apollonia. It's the end of the blue line on the underground system, and I think it has overline trains as well. But it's one of the main stations in Lisbon, I think. So I'm now at the National Tile Museum, Museu National de Azulejo. So Portugal is quite well known for having very ornate and decorative tiles, and yeah, this is the next stop on the trip where I've decided to stop. So I'm now in the Tile Museum. It costs just €5 to get in for a normal ticket. And I read that this place actually used to be a monastery, which is why you've got this courtyard and outdoor space right in the centre. Yep, so I had to queue for about 10 minutes to get in. It's quite a popular museum, I think. It's definitely on the tourist route. In the first room you can see this short explanation about the tile industry. So it's an identary art of Portugal in uninterrupted use for the past 5 centuries. So it's one of the oldest traditions in Portugal and one of the most important art forms in the country. So this one is called the panel of Our Lady of Life from 1580. Wow, look at this one, it's huge. So 1580 is quite an important date in Portugal because it was the year that the Iberian Union took place, so Spain and Portugal became the same country essentially. So room 6 is patterns from the 17th century. So these are panels, groupings of tiles that have been put together to create larger panels. Wow, really beautiful and very well preserved. A lot of the tiles from the 15th, 16th and 17th century are actually religious themed because at that time the church was the most wealthy and powerful organisation in Portugal. So not only did they have the money to make these tiles and panels, but they had the connections with other countries like Spain and places in Northern Europe like Belgium that also produced tiles and had the necessary materials for it. So that's why a lot of the themes that you see depicted on the tiles are of a religious nature, specifically, Roman Catholic. So I'm just walking up the stairs now to this cloister, this courtyard. It looks very Moorish or Arabic, the design of this, although it might not be, because it was a monastery. Wow, okay, so they've got some modern art installation right in the middle of the cloister. Very ornate parts of the monastery that have been preserved. So the tiles in the cloisters do look ancient, but incredible patterns and designs. And have a look at this ancient set of taps. So going up to the first floor now. Let's see what's in store here. So this room is called Sala di Caza, which is the hunting room from the 17th century. And a lot of the panels are depicting hunting scenes. So this is the cloister from the second floor, so you can see in a bit more detail up here because the light is better. Really ornate, very decorative style. This is called Capella di Sant'Antonio, so the Chapel of St. Anthony. I think this might have been an original room, original part of the monastery. So on the top floor of the museum, you've got this fantastic panel, which is 23 meters long, and it represents a panorama of the city of Lisbon. So this was made in the year 1700, and it was before the famous earthquake that happened in 1755. So obviously the panorama would have changed quite a bit after the earthquake. Yeah, but it's incredibly beautiful and a real feat of artwork. So in this room you've got more contemporary tile work. This one's from 1934, 1928, so 20th century. Showing how tile making in Portugal has evolved over the years and over the centuries. So even today it remains a really popular art form in this country. So this one's from 1998. Really interesting design. This one's from 1995. Yep, and you can see into the courtyard from here. So I'm just having a quick coffee in the coffee shop at the Tile Museum. So cheers. Café con leite. So the Museu de Azulejo is a really cool place to come to. It's not too big, not too small, and it's on a lot of the tourist routes that you get in Lisbon. Yeah, so for €5 it's really good value, and I like how they show all the different periods of the designs that they had for the tiles. So a lot of the early stuff was religious orientated and religious themes because the church was paying for a lot of the production. And then over the centuries it became a bit more diverse and creative with its themes. So yeah, I've always found it interesting that Portugal's got this culture of producing tiles, so it's really good to come here and see a bit of the history of how it happened and why it happened, so that was really good. I did go to a tile museum in Montevideo in Uruguay, which was also fascinating and really worth visiting, so I highly recommend that if you are in Montevideo. But yeah, this is a fantastic museum. I would 100% recommend coming here, and it's not that busy either. It's relatively quiet, I would say. Thumbs up for the Tile Museum in Lisbon. That was great. I really enjoyed it. So, heading to the bus stop now. So you can see the exterior of the Tile Museum. This is the monastery. You can see the original architecture of the monastery of what it used to be. Yeah, and the entrance to the museum is just there, behind that blue sign.